Welcome to Season 3 of Unlock Your Child's Full Potential, where we focus on the mindset shifts, practical tools, and strategies that empower us to positively and effectively influence our kids. Today's guest, Brad Chandler, shares a truly life-changing story that started with helping his son manage anxiety and ended up transforming his own life. When a coach pointed out that his childhood stress might be playing a role in his son's struggles, Brad took a leap and decided to explore it. What he discovered was profound. So much of the pain and negative behaviors we experience, anxiety, depression, addiction, often tie back to untruths we carry from childhood. Through his own journey of healing, Brad realized the most powerful gift we can give our kids is breaking the cycle of generational trauma by learning to love ourselves unconditionally. Now he's on a mission to help others. Thank you for joining us today. To kick things off, could you tell us more about your own story and your family life? I know you've experienced a transformational journey yourself. Conversation. How did you become a happiness coach, as you call it, and how it all started?
So 3.5 years ago, trying to get my son help for anxiety, I was on a call with a performance coach, and in the first couple of minutes of us talking, she's like, "You have a tic," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "You blink like crazy when you talk about your childhood. You may have some unresolved childhood trauma or stress that's actually affecting your son's anxiety." And I'm like, "Me? No way. I've been a single dad for years. I treat him great. I'm always here with him. I take him around the country playing golf. But okay, if you think maybe that's the case, I'll listen to you." So she invited me to come out and work with her and her ex-Navy SEAL husband for a weekend in Park City. And I did that in February of 2021. And over the course of a weekend, Billy, really a 3-hour session laying in this bed in an Airbnb bedroom, my life forever changed. And I came back and things had changed so profoundly in such a short time that I looked around at all the people in my network and family and social circles that were struggling or suffering. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think that they're suffering for the same reason that I didn't even know I was suffering. But now when I figured out, I could look at everyone and be like, oh my gosh, it may be the same thing. So I just started telling people about my journey and they started opening up and they were like, "Wow, Brad, you're really good at this." And person after person was like, "Gosh, I've never shared that with anyone before. Only my husband knows that." So I just kept talking to people, and I went back to the ex-Navy SEAL to watch him take another group of people through it twice. And I never have found anything that I feel so inspired by and so passionate about. So I just started studying, and I've studied under some of the world's best people, and I put together this program that has just amazing transformative results in like literally 3 to 5 weeks.
Wow, so fast. What is exactly the process? It got me wondering, huge results in such a short time. What do you actually do? Overcoming limiting beliefs? I know that's a big topic in your coaching.
Yes. So here's maybe the most important part of the podcast. So pull over and take some notes if you're driving. Every negative behavior that we have in our life, and I'll name 5 or 6, but we could stay here for hours and name them, right? Addiction, depression, shutting down with your spouse, OCD, eating too much. The list goes on and on. Overworking, porn addiction, whatever it is. All these things are negative and we want to stop them, right? But why can't we? The reason that we have such a trouble is because those negative things, those behaviors are actually our brain's perceived solution to something that it thinks is worse than the negative behavior. When you uncover the thing that's driving this, that your brain thinks is worse than the negative behavior, Billy, it's always, 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 always an untruth, an untruth. And almost 9.9 times out of 10, that untruth was formed in childhood to get through a stressful time, or when your needs weren't met, or control was taken from you. It actually served you, but it doesn't serve you as an adult. So we figure out the untruth. We show the brain the actual truth. A mismatch detector goes off in our brain, and it literally, through a process called neuroplasticity, rewrites that neural pathway holding that untruth. Well, when that happens, Billy, what do you think happens to the negative behavior?
It just goes away.
It goes away because now it's got nothing fueling it. There's not one person that lives today that's 45, 50, 60, 25 that has depression or anxiety or OCD or eating problem that was born with it. No one's born with these things. They're learned behavior through experiences. And so what you do helping kids and parents with kids, like it fascinates me because when I start talking a lot about this, people are like, well, Brad, you should write a book on how to parent because that's where it all starts. And I'm like, yeah. And if I was going to write a book on parenting, it wouldn't be so much on parenting. It would be about healing the parents because the greatest gift that you can
Amen. Yeah.
ring the bell, ding, ding, ding. The greatest gift that you can give a child is to break the multi-generational curse that most of the world has been involved in for probably thousands of years. What is the multi-generational curse? You don't feel enough, or you're addicted, or you're depressed, and you just pass it down. You don't pass down the addiction and you don't pass down the depression. You pass down the resulting trauma from those things. So, how do you stop that? Fortunately, in my family, I'm in the process of stopping it with my 17 and 22-year-old child. How do you do that? You teach the child how to love themselves unconditionally. How can you, as a parent, ever teach a child how to love themselves unconditionally if you don't? You can't. Most of our problems are from lack of self-love. So you can teach yourself how to love yourself, and then forever your family will be changed for generations to come because your kids will pick a different spouse. I promise you. If you lack self-love, you're going to match with a spouse with lack of self-love. If you have extreme self-love, you're going to go find someone who has extreme self-love. So that's it in a nutshell. Is if your kids have behavioral problems and you want to find out the source, just grab your spouse by the hand and walk into the bathroom, look in the mirror. Notice I
Mhm.
didn't say it's your fault because it's not your fault. It wasn't my fault that I created anxiety or I was a part of it because his mother was too. It wasn't my fault. I was doing the best I could, but I felt not enough. So I was pushing that down to him. Now that I feel enough, like my relationship with my 17-year-old daughter is like amazing. Like we are so close and we never were before because of my insecurities.
So what you did is change yourself because we're told all the time you have to love your kids unconditionally, no matter what they do. And if we don't love ourselves first, we are not able to do that for our kids as well.
I have a self-love quiz that actually shows your level of self-love. And I didn't set it up for people to like all get lack of self-love. Not at all. You can take it, you can change the answers and see it will score you whatever is the truth. 7% of the people who take that test, maybe five, scored extreme self-love. The rest of them are at mild self-love or lack of self-love. So yeah, how can you love a child unconditionally if you don't love yourself unconditionally? And when you make a mistake and you're like, you effing idiot, you don't love yourself unconditionally.
And in practical terms, how do we start doing that? I've heard Mel Robbins high five in the mirror. I've practiced that for a while. I think that's a wonderful way to start the process. But in your opinion, what are some practical steps?
Look, it's really hard just to wake up and be like, hey, I'm going to love myself today. The reason that you don't love yourself is the example I used earlier. There's something underlying that's driving this, right? You've got to do the work. Whether you call me or work with Billy or go to your local therapist, it doesn't matter. Well, your local therapist may focus too much on the conscious mind. So maybe take that answer away. But look, that even that's better than nothing. But you've got to get to what is driving it. For me, so everything happens in childhood, not almost everything, literally almost everything. What happened in my case? My dad would hit me with a belt when I did like age appropriate things. I misbehaved. He would make fun of me. My parents fought all the time, all the time. My dad became violent at times. So, what is that little mind telling him? Why is this happening to me? I'm 6 years old. Why is this happening to me? There must be something wrong with me. Because guess what? If there's something wrong with mom and dad, I am absolutely screwed because I can't control them. We as children often take the burden on saying it's our fault because then we have a sense of control. It's not real, but we have a sense of control because all I had to do as little 6-year-old Brad was just be a better boy. And my dad would love me and stop making fun of me. And my parents would stop fighting about everything, including money. So that's it. You've got to get to the source, and the source of the problem actually was a positive for you. It was a benefit. That was helpful for me as a kid to be like, hey, this is happening to me because I had to make sense of it. But as a 47-year-old who's never owned a boat, he goes and buys a 42-foot boat, and 60 days later, he barely knows how to drive it, and he's going to take it to the Bahamas to show the world something. That doesn't serve you. That was me. I didn't wake up and be like, oh, I'm going to buy a really big boat and I'm going to take it to the Bahamas and people will love me. But my subconscious brain made that decision for me. So it served you before. It's crushing your relationships. It's crushing your health. It's destroying your business, your friendships, everything as an adult. So what do? You go back and you do the work. If you're going to do it on your own, just do a lot of meditating and figure out where were the times in my life where I had a lot of stress and what was the meanings that I came up with them. And then ask yourself, were those true? They're not true. Whether you believe in God or whoever, I think everyone believes there was a creator, right? That creator didn't make Billy a little better than Brad or Brad a little better than Billy. We're all enough.
Yeah. And do you think that all the limiting beliefs our kids have stem from our own insecurities?
They play an enormous part because people might say, well, what about the bullies at school? Well, it's just like sex predators will target people they know aren't going to go tell mom and dad. These kids have a sense of who the weak kids are. Why are the kids showing weakness? Because they came from a family that makes them feel weak or scared or something. Do you know how many times a client or a potential client has told me they were bullied? And I say, who did you tell about that? And I always know the answer. The answer is no one. Why is it no one? Dr. Gabor Mate says this. Why don't you come and tell your parents when someone's bullying you or if they sexually abused you or hit you or did something? Because your parents haven't created a safe environment for you to do that. Why haven't they created a safe environment? Because they didn't have a safe environment as a child. They had no idea how to create a safe environment. To them, maybe when they showed emotions as a kid, they got hit. So you're going to come and talk about emotions? No, no, no. We're not doing that. We don't talk about emotions in our family. You know, I had a client one time his father said, you're going to cry? I'll give you something to cry about.
Oh, yeah, I know that phrase. And you know, there are many of us that want to be open with our kids to create that safe environment. Nevertheless, we're not able to because we don't know how.
I didn't really know how to. My daughter was like, Dad, you used to always be like angry all the time. And I wasn't angry all the time, but in her perception, it was like, now she's like, you just smile all the time. And why is that? Because I did exactly what I'm telling you guys to do. Just go figure out this crap, this underlying untruth that's not serving you. Yeah, we have this thing called the Joy Regenerator that you can get on our site on unlocklimitlessyou.com on the resources tab. And it's for the clients, but I often teach them, I go, teach your kids how to do this. Use this in front of the kids. So anytime you feel a negative emotion, Billy, you're in a fight or flight state. Bottom line, you're in a fight or flight state. If you're feeling scared or angry, you're in a fight or flight state, which means cortisol is being released. You're not in the present moment. So I want you to do some breathing, deep box breathing, in for 4 or 5 seconds, hold it for 4 or 5 seconds, out, hold it, just repeat, right? And I want you to identify, what are you feeling, right? When you're in fight or flight, you're in the amygdala, the monkey brain. Well, when you ask yourself to identify it, you've got to think about what you're feeling. So now you're shifting to the prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain. So automatically, it doesn't work perfectly, but you're going to start to get out of fight or flight by just identifying it. Then you got to recognize it's not the 45, or in my case, the 51-year-old Brad that feels these negative emotions. It's the 6-year-old inside of him. So you got to give compassion to that 6-year-old and say, hey, it's okay you're feeling sad. Then you figure out, where did it come from? What is this underlying thing? And that's what we do at Limitless You. We help our clients uncover this. But for me, I know this because I've done the work. The thing that's driving this is a thought. A thought always drives an emotion, and the emotion drives a behavior. It's to keep us alive. We see a lion, we have a thought, oh shit, he's going to eat me. We get really scared. So our brain and mind sends blood to our legs so we can run. It's actually helping us. So in my case, what is creating the emotion? It's always the thought that I'm not enough. So I stop and I pause and I go, well, is that true? And I go, no, it's not true. So do I want to continue feeling sadness based on a thought that's not true? No. So I pop back into joy. So teach your kids how to do that. Teach your kids how to process their emotions, because there's always a reason. And then the second step on that is, how do you improve your relationships? If Billy's my wife and we're having a conflict, Billy, what you just said or did made me, it's not your fault, but it made me tell the story that when you showed up late for dinner, I got sad because I felt like you didn't love me. Can we talk about this so that I can process it and I can heal and we can become better connected? That's what you do. And do that in front of your kids. Like, literally teach them at 5, 6, 7, and 8 how to process their emotions. I use that now in my relationship. We use it back and forth. It's a phenomenal tool. It's not your fault, Billy, but what you just did made these feelings come up. Can we work this together?
I love this. Who talks like that to their spouse? Yeah.
Exactly. My pattern, my two old spouses, they come to me and say, Brad, this is what you did. And I go, well, you did this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And they'd be like,
Mm.
oh, why are you turning this on me? I was like, I'm not turning it on you, but this is the truth. And then I'd flight, which means I'd be cold and distant for 3 or 4 days. Billy, I had this weight on my chest. I hated it. I didn't like it, but I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know why it was coming up. 3 or 4 days. Now, Yvonne, my life partner, business partner, comes to me, Brad, this is what you did. Okay, let's discuss it. Because I'm not fighting for my worthiness anymore. I know I'm enough.
I love that. And a lot of what you say reminds me of Tony Robbins. I've been to some of his events, and what he talks about is emotional home. What this is for the listeners, it's the dominant emotional state we tend to return to, whether it's happiness, anger, or sadness. And some people reside a lot in sadness or anger. And I'm wondering if you have some advice for parents, how can we help our kids create a happy emotional home as their default state? Not just looking for things that are not going well, rather looking for what's really good in our lives.
Yeah, let me come back to that. I want to comment on a couple of things you said. Tony Robbins, I love Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins often doesn't go deep enough. So you go to these seminars and you rah for 12 hours a day for three days straight. And then you come home and like Tuesday rolls around, you get back Sunday night and you look around, you're like, but I'm still drinking the wine and I'm still angry at my wife when she says this, or this. No knock on Tony Robbins. I mean, he's a phenomenal human being, one of my idols, really, but he just doesn't go deep enough. You've got to get to the subconscious mind. So to answer your question, it goes back to what I said earlier. If you want to create a happy environment in your children's life, you have to have a happy environment in your life. You have got to teach them how to love themselves unconditionally. You've got to teach them how to process their emotions. Dr. Gabor Mate says that children only misbehave for one reason. They lack a connection with the parent. So hopefully you don't hit your kids because that's really, really bad. I know there's a lot of people that still do, but despite what you think, it's one of the worst things you can do. Secondly, like even time out. The gentleman who took me through my transformation, he told me of a story of a client of his who at 35 had major issues. And when they did the deep work, the parents would, if he misbehaved, would put him in his room and shut the door. And as a kid, we don't know time. So he was asking himself, are they ever going to come back? Am I going to die in here? So even something that I used to do all the time out, the kid is misbehaving because they're not connected. Go put him in timeout. You're further disconnecting them. It's a problem I have with the juvenile detention system. These poor kids who are acting up, do you think they came from loving families where their needs were met? Of course not. What do? We put them in a freaking detention hall. And then if they further misbehave, we put them in like a hole or a cell by themselves. Like that's not what you do. So if your kid is misbehaving, go walk up to them. If they're at an age, pick them up, look in their eyes, have a conversation with them. What's going on? Why are you feeling this way? And start walking through the joy regenerator with them.
Yeah, that's a lot. We talk a lot about this on the podcast. It's all about how to influence our kids without fear and force. And it's so hard on us because we weren't raised that way. Our subconscious goes to the default, to how we were raised. It's a process. We have to work on ourselves first to be able to not react and explode like a volcano when the misbehavior is happening.
Yeah. So the joy regenerator is a perfect tool because as you start to feel the negative emotion, the more you train yourself, the easier it becomes. If you are getting angry at your kid, rather than react, go through the joy regenerator. And it's going to help you unlock whatever your kids are doing is not what's making you mad. What's making you mad or sad or angry is your brain going back to a time in your childhood and bringing in a meaning about that. So my daughter, I give this example a lot. Old Brad, daughter wouldn't unload the dishwasher. So my thought is she's being disrespectful. So that means she doesn't love me. So I feel sad or angry. So I yell at her. Why can't you do the dishwasher? I don't even know if I ever did this, but probably. And what does she do? Now, what's her thought? Oh, he doesn't love me. So now I'm really sad and I'm going to go drink or smoke weed. But why did I get mad if she didn't unload the dishwasher? Did it have anything to do with her unloading the dishwasher? No. It had to do with me feeling unworthy and her reminding me that She doesn't care enough about me, so I'm unworthy. Just like when my father would make fun of me or hit me with a belt. So that's a huge thing, awareness. When you're arguing with your spouse, it has nothing to do with leaving the toilet seat up. It has nothing to do with whatever, playing the TV loud. It's they're playing the TV loud, or they don't put the toilet seat down because they don't love me. Just like I felt when my dad didn't show up to all my birthday parties. That's it. We're attaching a meaning to it. One of my mentors says, all these people talk about living a meaningful life. He goes, I want to live a meaningless life. By that, he means just see the event for the event. Why do you have to attach a meaning to it? I'm using you as an example. Your kids could be like acting up and it might be driving you crazy. And I could be in the same room and be like, fine with me. So why is it aggravating you so much? Because you're bringing in the meaning.
Yeah, so true. So true. And how long did the process take for you? You said old Brad, new Brad. What was the transition? Tell us more about that.
3 hours. Literally,
Hmm.
this is a guy who went to therapy for 3 decades and probably went to over 50 different marriage counseling sessions with my two wives. And in 3 hours, I made 100% more shift than I ever did with all the thousands of hours that I went to. Now, here's the analogy. I'm holding out my hands for those of you who are listening on audio. They're about a foot apart. My left hand represents complete brokenness, like it can't get any worse. And on my right hand is complete enlightenment, which probably one half of 1% of people ever get to in the world. In those 3 hours, I literally, or maybe the first 3 weeks, I closed the gap and now my hands are an inch apart. Now, for the rest of my life, Billy, I get to operate in this gap trying to close it. But guess what? Living in this gap is freaking amazing. I can't tell you when the last time that I got like boiling mad. Do I get upset at times when Yvonne and I have a disagreement? Yes, but that's rare. I don't get angry anymore. Why is that? Because I've processed out these negative emotions or these underlying limiting beliefs. And as soon as I start to feel the negative emotion, I always can trace it back. And I'm like, but I'm enough, so I don't have to live in this. It's the most liberating thing. The night before I went through that 3 hour transformation, this ex-Navy SEAL at dinner told me that he was trying to get to a point in his life where no one or situation could negatively affect him. And I looked at him and I thought to myself, he's nuts. Like, what does he think? Here we are 3.5 years later, and I'm not perfect, but I am so far closer to it because I now realize that if I'm upset, it has nothing to do with the situation. I don't have any bad days anymore because I don't look at it that way. I believe Tony Robbins says this, everything is happening for you. So if I get a flat
Mhm.
tire and I can't go play golf with my buddies, I'm like, I wonder why that happened. Maybe if I had left at the time I should have left, a drunk driver would have hit me. I don't know. I miss a flight. I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have been on that flight. I get sick. I can't go somewhere. Okay. Everyone can live their life that way. It's just been such a joy these last couple of years.
I love that. I also always find the meaning behind the things that happen to us, but it takes me a longer time to realize it. And it sounds like you're doing it instantly, or at least the gap is very, very small. And you don't go into the emotion and then silver lining, you're already there.
So yes, and I think I manifest a lot of stuff. I often pull up to parking space in the parking lots. And I'm like, something's going to open, and I just chuckle because it's incredible how many times they open. A couple of weeks ago, my best friend and I, since fifth grade, we went to the Virginia Tech football game, and I ordered a $220 parking pass because that's what it costs. Well, I knew it wasn't going to get here on time because there was some discrepancy. So I'm like, I'm not going to wait around, Pete. I'm going to leave. I go, watch, something good is going to happen from this. So my son doesn't live with me. He lives with a relative in Charlottesville. And I was trying to get him to come with us, but he really wasn't being communicative. And I didn't think it was going to show. He definitely was like, Dad, I'm not going. So because we didn't park in the parking spot, we parked somewhere else. And we decided to take a walk. And we took a walk down Main Street of Blacksburg. And guess who I run into? My beautiful 6'6" son. And I'm like, I looked at Pete and I go, this is why we didn't get the parking pass. But I was like manifesting that something good was going to happen. That could have ruined someone's entire weekend. I can't believe I don't have a freaking parking pass. I haven't been back to my alma mater in 10 years. This just sucks. Life always sucks. Everything's all. No, I was just like, okay, something good's going to come out of it. And it only took 24 hours and it was shown to me. It's just remarkable.
Yeah, truly remarkable. And how long did it take for your relationship with the kids to improve after you made the transformation?
It was pretty fast because I came back from that weekend and had a good crying session with them and basically just told them I was sorry. I was sorry for all the things I did. And I didn't do anything really bad. I never hit my kids. I didn't make fun of them. I barely yelled at them. But I put a lot of pressure on them, not knowing because I felt inferior. My son, in that, he actually was with me in Park City. And after the 3 hour session was over, he came in because he was working with the lady. And he came in and he was like, Dad, I only thought you would love me if I played golf at a high level. Now, you think I ever told him that? No, I told him just the opposite. I said, look, Bradford, if you don't want to play golf, don't do it for me. But that was my conscious mind. My subconscious mind was likely saying, if this guy can be a professional golfer, I'm going to be worthy. I was always searching for stuff outside of myself externally to bring me inner peace. Nothing outside of yourself can bring you inner peace. It's always internal. So yeah, I came home and I just said, I'm so sorry. And now I just have a different relationship with them. It's not about me pushing them. I understand it's their story, it's their life, and I'm there as like a guide for them.
Oh, yeah. Amazing. Thank you for this wonderful and uplifting conversation. It's been truly helpful. Before we go, could you let our listeners know where they can find you, how they can connect with you and work with you? Because it truly sounds amazing, the work you're
Sure.
doing.
Thank you so much. If you like this type of content, I have a podcast called How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. We're ranked in the top 2%, so you can check us out there. And then unlocklimitlessyou.com/Brad has links to everything. We have an amazing self-love quiz. So if you're curious, if you have some of these underlying untruths that are driving your negative behavior, take the quiz. It only takes 3 minutes. It's completely free. It's 12 questions. That's at that link too. And then I put out a social media message almost every day. All my social media platforms are there. So that's the way to reach me.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you found value in this episode, I'd love for you to take a moment to rate and review the podcast on Apple or Spotify. It really helps others find the show and allows me to keep bringing you more insightful content. Your support means the world to me. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.